All right, guys, we are going to be covering lesson 22, and it's kind of a shorter lesson. In 22.A, discusses the graph and equation of absolute value. So just a little review, absolute value is when we surround x with those straight bars, and it means distance from 0. So really quick, let's go over a basic absolute value. So the absolute value of x, if I was to make a table, right, x, y, if x is -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Because you will need to know what the table looks like, and you will need to know what the graph looks like. Very, very important because you will be asked to graph, so you need to be able to do that by hand. So really quick, the absolute value of a number is the distance from 0, and distance cannot be negative. So the distance from -3, -3 is 3 units from 0, right? If this is a -4. -3 is 1, 2, 3. If I put +4, that's here. The distance from -2 from 0 is +2. The distance of -1 is 1, 0. Now this side's easy, right? 1 is 1 unit from 0. 2 is 2 units. 3 units. So your graph should be a perfect V shape. And I know that on the left, my graph should have a V shape, and each side should have a slope of 1. So if I was going to graph this is up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. And on this side is the same, up 1 and to the left, up and over 1 unit. So this is the basic graph of absolute value, and you should be able to move and shift it and so on, okay? So a couple things about transformations. So y equals x minus h plus k. Now they're only going to go over basic ones. But anything on the inside, this shifts it horizontal, which would mean left or right. And k shifts vertically, which would mean it shifts it up or down. Okay, so we're going to try one. Graph. Oops, I should write y or f. Right? Graph f of x equals x minus 2 plus 3. Now, if you don't remember transformations from Algebra 2, this actually means I move in the opposite. I don't move to the left, -2. I actually move right 2. Plus 3 would be read just as it is, up 3. So in order to graph that, you're going to graph the original in pencil. We're going to do a lot of this year. Just wait till we start doing it. Let me get a pencil. Just wait till we start graphing your trig functions. Fun, fun, fun. But I promise you, the graphing in trig is a lot easier than the graphing in Algebra 2. So I'm going to graph my original function. My original absolute value looks like this. Hopefully we can agree this is what the original graph looks like. Now I'm going to shift each point to the right 2. So right 2 and up 3. Right 2 and up 3. Right 2, up, whoops. Right 2, up 3. And you get the point. So this point would be right 2, up 3. So your V is shifted to the right 2, up 3, but I know it has a perfect V. So that is my graph. Okay? So you guys should be able to do that based on the equation they give you. I'm going to do one more and we'll move on. So graph f of x. I don't know why there's a glare on this paper. Not sure. Graph f of x equals x plus 2 minus 1. Okay, let's go over the shifts. That is left 2, and that right there is down 1. All right, so if I was to graph this, I'm going to go over kind of an easier way to graph this. If I know the shape is a V, so I'm picturing my original 2, 2, negative 2, negative 2. So I'm picturing my original should be at 0, 0, right? The original point should be at 0, 0. I'm going to go to the left 2, down 1. Now I know it forms a perfect V with a slope of 1. So up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Going back to the middle, now I'm going to go to the left, up and over, up and over, up and over. So if you can remember that each side has a slope of 1, you're really only shifting that bottom point of the vertex. Right, that point that should be at 0, 0, that's what you're shifting. Okay. Next part of this section goes over absolute value that's not on a y and x plane. So the next one, graph the set on a real number line. And I'm going to do two parts. So part A, graph this set for x. X is the set of all real numbers such that, I'm going to give you an equation, okay? So that's a vertical bar such that x, the absolute value of x minus 5 is less than 2. Now, this is totally different than what we were doing before. Before we were graphing absolute value on a y and x plane. But here I don't have a y. I just have x. And so that's why this is only on a number line. You have a single variable, not two variables. So the first thing I have to do is solve for x. Now remember, an absolute value, I have to write two equations. X minus 5 is less than 2, and x minus 5 is greater than negative 2. So let's go over what I did here. Okay, for second equation, flip inequality, change sign. So I'm talking about okay? So that is what this, I have a first equation, second equation. So I'm going to solve x is less than 7, right? I would add to both sides. And here x is greater than 3, right? Because I would add 5. So if I put that on a real number line, and I'll put, let's say I put 5 in the middle. 5, 6, 7, 8, 5, 4, 3, 2. And then we're going to graph this. So this says x is less than, that would be an open circle pointing this way. This says x is greater than, open circle pointing this way. So here are it's my answer. They wanted us to be able to read this domain and graph the solutions and by solving it. So part B, graph this set on a real number line. So x is the set of all real numbers such that the absolute value of x plus 2 that is greater than or equal to 3. Okay, so the first thing I have to do is solve for x. And so I've got two equations. X plus 2 is greater than or equal to 3. And x plus 2 is less than or equal to negative 3. Notice I flipped the symbol and I changed the sign, just like I told you up here. Flip the inequality and change the sign of the number. And I should just put of number so it applies to every problem. So hopefully you at least look at my notes. All right, so if I subtract 2, x is greater than or equal to 1, x is less than or equal to -5. So my graph, my number line, I'm not going to use more arrows. I'll just draw my graph. All right, I need to leave room for both. So let's say I put 0 here, so this would be 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So -2, that would be -5. So I've got closed dot here. It says x is less than, and it says x is greater than. And so for this one, those are my answers. Okay, not too bad. Make sure you're really looking at the equation part. You're solving this part here, right? The absolute value of x plus 2 is greater than or equal to 3. For 22 point B, we're going to skip that for now. We're going to get to reciprocal functions later. Reciprocal functions are easy. Reciprocal. So if f of x equals x, then f of the reciprocal function equals 1 over x. So if, then that is the reciprocal. Reciprocal. It's simple. We go over it later, so we're just going to skip. So for the homework for 22, we will cover most of that later. You are going to skip numbers 1, 5, 8, 15, 19, 25, and 26. And that is it for 22.